The Galactic Union had existed in peace for centuries. It was a collection of over 300 alien species, all connected through shared laws, trade, and science. They had mapped out much of the known galaxy and believed they understood every corner of it. So, when a strange signal came from a small blue planet on the edge of a forgotten star system, they didn't take it seriously. The signal carried no message, just a repeating wave pattern that confused their sensors. Some thought it was a natural echo. Others believed it came from a dying civilization that had long vanished. Either way, it was dismissed as unimportant. A scout probe was sent to the planet, officially called Terra in their records. But the locals called it Earth, and it was far from unimportant. The Galactic Union had no idea they were looking directly at the home of the most dangerous species the galaxy had never met. The scout reported back with simple data: oxygen-based atmosphere, signs of agriculture, weak energy signatures from old satellites, and scattered structures. It looked peaceful and unguarded. That was enough for the Resource Allocation Bureau to label Earth as unclaimed and unprotected. Within hours, the Union dispatched an automated mining fleet to begin harvesting water and metal from the surface. Dozens of machines entered the atmosphere without warning, landing near human cities, drilling into the ground, and slicing through forests as if no one lived there. To them, it was just another backwater world to use and forget. But to humans, it was an attack. People on the ground watched the machines descend like a silent invasion. Entire communities were evacuated as the machines tore into the earth. Panic spread fast. Governments activated emergency protocols. Satellites tracked the invaders. Soldiers were deployed. And then humans fought back. What the Galactic Union expected was confusion or fear. What they got was resistance, precision, and something they had never faced before: adaptability. Human fighter jets scrambled into the sky, firing missiles that tore through the Union machines like paper. Ground troops used old-school tactics mixed with modern weapons to disable and destroy the drones. In less than 12 hours, the entire mining fleet was wiped out. Every single machine was reduced to burning metal. And humanity wasn't finished. They uploaded the battle footage online. The world saw what had happened. So did the galaxy. The Galactic Council received the video with confusion. They watched as small human fighters outmaneuvered advanced drones. They saw soldiers communicate, plan, and execute ambushes with terrifying accuracy. It wasn't just military skill; they saw something far more dangerous. They saw emotion, anger, unity, determination. For the first time in centuries, the Council felt something they hadn't felt in generations. Uncertainty, but arrogance is hard to defeat. The Council laughed it off. Primitive, they said. Lucky, others claimed. A decision was made without a second thought: send a battlecruiser. Show them their place. The Council believed it would be quick and clean. Just a single cruiser, not even a full fleet. They expected fear and surrender. What they got instead was a response that changed everything. As the cruiser entered Earth's solar system, human systems detected it immediately. Earth's defense systems were outdated by Union standards, but humans had something far more powerful than just technology. They had creativity. Hackers jammed the alien signals. Observatories tracked every movement. Engineers and scientists worked together, predicting the enemy's path, building makeshift defenses, and preparing a counterstrike. The world united not under one flag, but under one goal: survival. In orbit, the Union cruiser sent a warning transmission. But it was never received. Humans had already shut down their communications. They weren't going to wait. At exactly 400 hours, Earth launched its first offensive space weapon, a high-speed missile packed with experimental tech. It didn't need to hit the cruiser. It only needed to get close enough. When it exploded, the energy pulse knocked out the cruiser's sensors. Human ships, small and fast, swarmed from the dark side of the moon. They didn't match the alien cruiser in size or strength, but they didn't need to. They hit hard, fast, and vanished into cover. The battle wasn't about firepower. It was about fear. The cruiser tried to respond, but its weapons were jammed, Systems were frozen, and its crew panicked. After just 7 minutes, it was forced to retreat, not defeated but humiliated. And the message was clear. The Galactic Union now understood they had made a mistake, but they still didn't understand how big. This wasn't just a strong species. This wasn't just about one planet defending itself. This was something far more terrifying. They had poked a sleeping giant and woken up a force they didn't know existed. Earth was not a primitive world. Humanity was not a lost species. They were intelligent. They were strategic. And above all, they were angry. Across the galaxy, other species began to take notice. Some were curious. Some were afraid. Others, mostly those who had suffered under the Union's control, secretly cheered. The humans had done what no one else had dared. They fought back. The story of Earth's defense began spreading, not just through official channels, but through secret networks and whispers. A single name began to surface again and again: humans dangerous, unpredictable, relentless. As the Union gathered its fleets and planned a stronger attack, Earth prepared for war. But this time, they weren't just waiting to defend. They were planning to strike back. A human warship was already under construction, something fast, silent, and deadly. It would carry Earth's best minds and soldiers, and it would carry a message to the stars. No longer would Earth wait to be attacked. From now on, they would be watching. They would be ready. And they would remember the day when the galaxy thought it could take what it wanted from them. That day was gone, because the humans had arrived. And the galaxy had just made the biggest mistake in its history. After the retreat of the Union cruiser, Earth was no longer the same. The skies no longer felt safe, and the stars above no longer seemed silent. Every government, every scientist, every strategist knew that a second wave was coming, and it would not be as easy to stop. But humans, when pushed, never backed down. They adapted. They evolved. And this time, they were not going to wait. Beneath the surface of the planet, in deep underground bunkers, the world's best minds gathered to form the Defense and Exploration Command, a global task force united by fear, anger, and one shared mission: protect Earth and send a message back into the void. The blueprints for Earth's first interstellar warship were completed in days, not years, and the construction began in total secrecy inside a repurposed asteroid mining facility hidden beyond the orbit of Mars. Named Valkyrie, the ship was unlike anything humanity had built before. It wasn't built to carry colonists or explorers. It was designed for speed, silence, and destruction. No shiny banners, no peace talks, just sharp steel and firepower wrapped in black armor that didn't reflect a single beam of light. The ship could bend its signals, hide from scans, and jump between locations faster than anything Earth had ever launched before. Every weapon on it was human-made, modified from existing technology with brutal creativity. Railguns, pulse warheads, EMP spears, and cloaked drone swarms, all designed not just to fight but to cripple, confuse, and dismantle the enemy from within. While Earth finished building Valkyrie, a smaller mission was already on its way: an uncrewed stealth probe carrying a simple payload: data. Hackers had cracked into the crash drones from the initial invasion and pulled out coordinates, maps, and communication patterns used by the Galactic Union. That information was loaded onto the probe along with a gift, a human virus, built to quietly slip into the Union's data network and spread chaos from the inside. No code of war was broken, no open message of aggression sent. Just a quiet whisper in the dark. The humans had just made their first move, and the galaxy didn't even know it yet. While politicians on other worlds debated the meaning of Earth's sudden resistance, while generals in the Union planned another demonstration of power, Earth was already far ahead. Spy satellites were deployed around alien relay points, deep space listening posts were activated, and human operatives trained in silence and shadows prepared for the possibility of off-world contact. Earth was no longer isolated. It had become a fortress wrapped in paranoia and purpose. But the most dangerous thing was not the weapons or the ships, it was the mindset. Humanity was no longer reacting. They were calculating. They were planning their next step with the cold clarity of a predator who knew the hunt had begun. When Valkyrie was finally ready, it launched without ceremony, sliding out of the darkness. Behind Mars, like a ghost. No one on Earth saw it go, no news broadcast mentioned it, and no official record was kept. It carried a crew of only 27 pilots, engineers, soldiers, and one AI developed in secret. Each one had volunteered knowing they might never return. But none of them hesitated. They were told the mission was simple: find the nearest Union outpost and make them understand what Earth truly was. Not a colony, not a resource, not a lost world, but a species that would not be conquered. As Valkyrie jumped into faster-than-light travel for the first time, the galaxy remained unaware that humanity was already among them. But soon, they would learn. The first target was a communication station orbiting a gas giant in Union-controlled space. It was lightly guarded, assumed to be untouchable by primitive species. The humans approached silently, cloaked and calculating. They studied every orbit, every heat signature, and every pattern. When they finally struck, it was over in 40 seconds. A burst of EMP cut through the station's systems, followed by precision missiles that hit every critical point. The humans boarded the station, secured all data, and left without a trace. The Union found the wreckage days later. There were no bodies, no answers. Just one message left on the internal display: you touched the wrong world. Panic started to ripple through Union command. This wasn't how wars were fought. Enemies were supposed to stand in lines and trade fire. But this enemy didn't follow their rules. It moved like shadow and struck like lightning. They couldn't predict the humans because they had never faced a species like them. For humans, war was not a ritual. It was survival. And when survival was on the line, humans became something terrifying. They became united. No longer split by nations or flags, Earth's people were now one force driven by purpose and memory. Every child remembered the day the sky burned. Every soldier remembered the retreat of the cruiser. And every leader knew this was only the beginning. The Union responded by placing guards around every outpost near Earth's region, deploying fleets that hadn't seen combat in centuries. But that only confirmed what the humans suspected: the Union was afraid. Not of Earth's weapons, but of what humans might do next. Because humans weren't looking for revenge. They were looking for understanding. They wanted the galaxy to know one thing: if Earth was attacked again, there would be no warnings, no second chances. But not every species in the galaxy supported the Union. Quietly, in dark corners of the stars, whispers spread. Other races, long oppressed and ignored by the Union, began to hear of the humans not as monsters, but as a sign of change. A spark. A possibility. For the first time, they saw a species that didn't bow, didn't beg, didn't run. They saw warriors who had never left their world but still managed to bleed the Great Union. And some began to wonder what would happen if the humans didn't stand alone. What if others joined them? What if this was not just humanity's first move but the galaxy's first crack in the wall of control? On Earth, plans were already forming. The next mission would not be an attack. It would be a message, one sent face to face. A meeting would be arranged, not with the Union, but with one of its enemies. A chance to speak, to ally, to prepare. Because Earth wasn't just planning to survive the next war. They were planning to reshape the rules of the entire galaxy. The galaxy had seen great fleets and grand wars before, but never had it witnessed a conflict started by a single ship that moved like a ghost and hit like a storm. Valkyrie, Earth's first interstellar warship, was not just a symbol, it had become a myth. Its crew of 27 operated in complete silence, without glory, medals, or broadcasts. Their mission had shifted beyond defense. Now they were the blade striking deep into the heart of the Galactic Union. After destroying the communication station, they didn't return or hide. Instead, they hunted. Every target was chosen with purpose: fuel depots, small patrol units, supply ships, and isolated relay stations. They never stayed in one system for more than a few hours. Each time the Union responded, Valkyrie was already gone, leaving behind destroyed systems, hacked databases, or sudden blackouts that crippled entire networks. To Union High Command, it felt like they were chasing a shadow with no face and no name. But to the humans aboard Valkyrie, it was all part of the plan. They weren't trying to win a war in the traditional way. They were trying to send a message. Earth is not a target. It is a warning. Inside Valkyrie, the crew worked without rest, living in tight, dim corridors filled with cold metal and humming systems. They trusted each other completely, bound by purpose. No one spoke of fear, only focus. Every soldier knew how quickly death could come in space, and yet none hesitated. The ship's AI, called Spectre, coordinated attacks with terrifying precision, analyzing Union protocols, predicting fleet movements, and even mimicking Union signal traffic to slip between patrols undetected. In one daring mission, they infiltrated a Union freighter convoy and rerouted it into an asteroid belt, disabling an entire supply chain for weeks. They sabotaged a research station experimenting on alien prisoners and freed every captive without firing a single shot. Their methods were brutal but careful: maximum damage, minimum exposure. And every time, Valkyrie escaped, vanishing before the Union could respond, leaving behind only confusion and wreckage. What terrified the Union the most wasn't the destruction but the strategy. This wasn't wild rage or chaos. It was cold, intelligent warfare. Back on Earth, news of Valkyrie's silent victories was known only to a select few. The rest of the world only saw silence. But that silence was a shield. The more the enemy underestimated Earth, the longer humanity could prepare. New defense satellites were launched, more ships were secretly built, and Earth's military began training for battles in space, not just on land. Every lesson learned by Valkyrie was sent back through encrypted messages, shaping the future of Earth's defense. Meanwhile, in distant sectors of the galaxy, whispers began to grow louder. Other species under the Union's rule, those long ignored, controlled, or forced into silence, began to hear of the human ship that fought alone. A ship that broke Union chains, struck Union stations, and answered slavery with fire. Some began to send signals, coded and desperate, hoping to reach the humans. A few offered help, some asked for protection, and others simply wanted to know if the stories were true. In time, Valkyrie received a reply from a group known as the Therex Coalition, a scattered alliance of minor species who had survived under Union pressure for generations. They didn't trust easily, but they hated the Union more. They offered information, hiding spots, and old smuggling routes. In return, they asked for one thing: hope. The captain of Valkyrie, a man named Commander Rainer Holt, understood the weight of what was happening. This mission had started as a warning. Now it was becoming a revolution. But he didn't celebrate. He knew they were still alone in enemy territory, far from Earth, and hunted by the full force of the Union. The ship's energy reserves were low, the hull had been damaged in the last attack, and 2 of the crew were injured. Supplies were running thin. They couldn't fight forever like this. So, they planned one final mission before returning, one strike so bold that the entire Union would be forced to take notice. The target was a shipyard orbiting a red dwarf star, where the Union built small patrol craft and deployed scout drones. It was heavily defended, protected by satellites, fighter patrols, and a planetary defense system. But Valkyrie had something the Union didn't: unpredictability. In the dead of night, using the shadow of the nearby asteroid belt, Valkyrie approached in complete silence. They shut down all non-essential systems, floating cold and invisible like space debris. When they were close enough, Spectre launched a virus that blinded the sensors for 6 minutes. That was all they needed. Missiles fired with perfect timing, hitting reactors, hangars, and control towers. The humans didn't wait for retaliation. They jumped out before the fire even reached its peak. When the Union arrived, the yard was already falling apart, spinning in the vacuum with fire trailing across its surface. The Union called an emergency meeting. For centuries, they had ruled through fear, diplomacy, and overwhelming control. But now, one ship from an ignored planet had dismantled half a dozen facilities, freed prisoners, stolen data, and disappeared without leaving a single trace of origin. They had no face to attack, no flag to blame. And worse, their own citizens were starting to ask questions. If this small, unknown race could fight back, What else had the Union lied about? Inside the grand chambers of Union power, panic began to set in. Fleet commanders were ordered to find the humans at any cost. Bounties were placed. Border zones were sealed. Surveillance was tripled. But Valkyrie had already gone dark. It had returned to the edge of known space, low on power but filled with knowledge. They had survived. They had hurt the enemy. And most of all, they had proved that Earth would never be conquered again. Commander Holt sat in the command chair, eyes fixed on the screen showing distant stars. He knew this was only the beginning. A storm was coming. The Union would not back down, but neither would humanity. They had shown the galaxy that even one ship, if powered by the right cause, could start a war. Not for conquest, but for freedom. The destruction of the Union shipyard did more than damage infrastructure. It shattered the illusion of control that had kept billions obedient for centuries. Across the galaxy, strange whispers began to grow in places where silence once ruled. On mining worlds, where exhausted workers never dared to speak of rebellion, voices started to rise in private corners. In slave markets and forgotten colonies, people asked quiet questions no one had ever dared to ask before. Who were the humans? How did they get so powerful so fast? And if one ship could burn through Union defenses, what would happen if Earth sent more? The Union's leaders tried to crush the rumors, but fear spread faster than truth, and every attempt to hide the attacks only made people more curious. The name Valkyrie became legend, and stories of its crew were twisted into myths. Some said it was piloted by machines, others believed it was a ghost ship built by an ancient species, and a few claimed it could disappear through walls of time. No one truly knew, but everyone had heard the same thing. The humans had declared war, and they weren't losing. Inside Union command, panic had grown into desperation. Fleets were ordered to scan every system. Border patrols became more aggressive, and entire planets were locked down in fear of human spies. Still, Valkyrie remained hidden. Commander Holt and his crew had gone completely dark, retreating to a dead zone of space littered with old wrecks and radiation clouds, where even the Union dared not go. They needed time. Their ship was damaged, resources were low, and the crew was exhausted, but none of them spoke of surrender. They listened as more signals from the galaxy reached them, secret broadcasts, encrypted messages, old rebel frequencies suddenly active again. Aliens from forgotten sectors were asking for contact, wanting to know if the humans would fight for them too. Holt didn't respond to all of them, but he listened. He understood that fear wasn't always weakness. Sometimes fear made people brave. Sometimes it made them ready to change everything. And right now, the galaxy was afraid not just of Valkyrie, but of what it represented. A challenge. A spark. An idea that maybe the Union wasn't invincible after all. On a desert planet deep in Union space, a low-ranking officer named Tyreen watched as his own soldiers questioned orders for the first time. They whispered about the humans when they thought no one was listening. They wondered why the Union, with all its power, couldn't stop a single ship. Tyreen was loyal, but he wasn't blind. He had seen the reports: burned stations, missing patrols, entire fleets rerouted in panic. And then came the message. A simple signal burst, hidden inside a mining frequency. We are not many, but we are enough. It didn't say who sent it, but everyone knew. Tyreen didn't report it. He stared at the stars that night and wondered what Earth must be like, how far they were willing to go, and whether fighting them was bravery or foolishness. He wasn't the only one. In secret chambers on neutral worlds, old enemies of the Union began speaking again, some for the first time in decades. The Therax Coalition, the Valeri syndicates, even the broken Zarnax tribes, all of them watched the humans with growing interest. None of them trusted each other, but they all hated the Union. And for the first time in living memory, they had a common symbol of resistance. Back aboard Valkyrie, Holt stood in the darkened command deck, surrounded by flickering screens and quiet systems. The crew worked with calm precision, running repairs, tracking signals, and mapping weak spots in the Union's defenses. They knew they couldn't fight forever alone, but they didn't need to. Their mission was never about winning a war. It was about breaking the silence. And that mission was already succeeding. More ships were being built on Earth, stronger than Valkyrie, faster and smarter. Alliances were forming in shadows, and plans were moving that even the crew didn't fully know. Holt's job was not to lead an army, it was to survive long enough for others to rise. As he looked out into the dark, he received a message from Earth. Only a few words, hold the line. Phase 2 begins soon. No other details were given, but Holt understood. They had done enough to wake the galaxy. Now it was time to prepare for something bigger. In the halls of the Union Senate, where rich voices once echoed with certainty, there was only confusion now. No one agreed on what to do. Some called for peace talks with Earth, fearing more attacks. Others wanted to wipe out the entire Sol system with full force. But every option seemed dangerous. What if Earth had more ships hidden? What if they weren't acting alone? And what if the stories about humans were true, that they never stopped fighting, even when outnumbered, even when beaten? The Chancellor herself, a cold and calculating leader, watched the chaos grow and gave one final order: silence the humans. Erase their name from every system. Find that ship and destroy it, no matter the cost. And so the hunt began. The Union's most advanced fleet, the Hand of Order, was sent into the sectors near the last known Valkyrie sighting. Thousands of drones were deployed. Bounties were increased. Every corner of space was searched. But Valkyrie had already moved. It slipped through the chaos like a shadow, hitting supply routes again, targeting communication satellites, and even disabling a deep space radar system without being seen. Every time they struck, the fear grew. In one sector, a Union patrol ship refused to engage Valkyrie, choosing instead to flee and abandon its post. In another, a planet under Union rule declared independence, citing human influence as inspiration. The Union cracked down harder, arresting citizens, burning messages, and silencing anyone who spoke of Earth. But it was too late. Fear had turned into anger and anger into action. In the farthest corners of the galaxy, the fear of the Union was being replaced by something new: hope. And hope, once awakened, could not be stopped. Commander Holt knew it too. As Valkyrie sailed through the cold vacuum, he looked at the stars and whispered to himself, "They thought they were the only power. Now they know we're here." Around him, his crew sat quietly, watching the monitors, listening to distant signals, and preparing for the next move. They didn't know how long they had before the Union found them, but it didn't matter. The fear had already spread, and with it, the war had changed. This was no longer just about Earth. This was about every species that had been ignored, every voice that had been silenced. The humans had started something that could not be undone. And now, the galaxy would have to choose: stand with the Union, or face the storm Earth had awakened. The Union called it a security incident, a small event near the edges of their controlled space, but those who saw it with their own eyes knew it was the day everything changed. The Valkyrie had been silent for weeks, slipping past fleets, avoiding confrontation, leaving behind only broken satellites and confused patrols. But on this day, it returned not to hide or run, but to stand in open defiance. It appeared near the Rylos Nexus, one of the most heavily guarded star systems in the Union, home to 3 major supply stations, a shipbuilding complex, and thousands of soldiers. No one believed any sane enemy would dare strike there. But Holt was no ordinary commander, and humans were no ordinary enemy. His orders were clear, his resolve unshakable. The mission wasn't about survival anymore. It was about sending a message that the age of fear was over. With calm precision, Valkyrie exited stealth mode right at the heart of the system, its signal blazing through the void, not hidden but loud and clear, broadcasting to every frequency, every station, every screen. "You silenced billions. Now it's our turn to speak." The first minutes were confusion. Union control thought it was a malfunction or a trick. They hesitated, arguing protocols and threat levels, wasting precious time. By the time they reacted, Valkyrie had already struck its railguns, tearing through defensive platforms with perfect accuracy, targeting only weapons systems and communication relays, avoiding civilian casualties, but making sure every military eye was watching. Holt didn't need to win this battle. He needed to be seen. And across the galaxy, millions watched as the most secure Union system fell into chaos. Panic spread like wildfire. Commanders barked orders that no one followed fast enough. Drone swarms scrambled from nearby moons, but they arrived in pieces, broken by electromagnetic bursts and old but precise Earth-designed viruses. In less than an hour, the unthinkable had happened. Valkyrie had disabled the core of the Union's power grid in the sector and escaped before the first reinforcement fleet even dropped out of warp. But the real damage wasn't the explosions or the loss of hardware, it was psychological. Every citizen, soldier, and senator saw what humans were capable of, and none of them would ever forget. As the Union tried to contain the story, to claim the attack was exaggerated or partially fabricated, a new signal spread through the data networks, short clips, still images, and eyewitness accounts leaked by anonymous sources, proving everything. Valkyrie's strike had been clean, precise, and deliberate. It wasn't an act of madness, it was a declaration. And worse for the Union, others began to move. On the planet Vorkesh, rebels seized control of their capital, waving the symbol of Earth over the government tower. In the Siller Belt, a mutiny broke out in a Union fleet, half the soldiers refusing to fire on a cargo ship rumored to carry human allies. On Earth, preparations shifted from defense to expansion. For the first time, the Terran High Council voted to launch a formal fleet, not just one ship or a scouting vessel, but a real force, small but deadly, meant to make contact with oppressed civilizations across the stars. Earth didn't want to conquer. It wanted to break the chains that had kept the galaxy in fear. But every revolution has a price. Commander Holt and his crew watched from a distance as the galaxy reacted. Messages flooded in pleas for help, promises of alliance, cries for rescue. But there were also threats. The Union, desperate and enraged, put a bounty so large on Holt's head that mercenaries from distant galaxies joined the hunt. Old enemies of Earth, long dormant, now saw a chance to settle old scores. And yet Valkyrie remained a ghost, moving through broken systems, gathering information, sending hope where it was needed. The crew never celebrated. They knew what was coming. This was just the beginning. And then, as if to confirm their fears, a new signal emerged. The Union had activated an ancient weapon, a project abandoned decades ago, Project Silence. It wasn't a bomb or a ship, but a massive AI system designed to control communication across the galaxy. If it went live, the Union could shut down every signal Earth sent, cut off the rising resistance, and lock the galaxy in fear once more. It was a last move, a desperate gamble, but one that could succeed if unchecked. Holt made his decision quickly. Valkyrie would not run. Not this time. With the help of allies who had once only whispered from the shadows, the ship launched toward the Project Silence facility, hidden in a gas giant's orbit. It was guarded by a fleet 10 times stronger than anything Holt had faced before, but he didn't plan to destroy them all. He only needed one shot to strike the AI core before it went online. As the ship raced forward, every crew member knew it might be their final mission. But none hesitated. They had come too far to fail. As they approached the target, enemy ships surrounded them, missiles flying, alarms screaming. Shields failed. Systems went dark. But the core was in sight. With the last of their power, Valkyrie launched a final railgun strike, cutting through the gas clouds and slamming directly into the heart of the AI station. The explosion was silent in space, but thunderous across data networks. Project Silence was gone, and then everything changed. Messages that had been blocked now flowed freely. Resistance forces coordinated for the first time. Civilizations long crushed under Union control rose together. And the Union, already shaken, finally cracked. Major leaders resigned. Border systems declared independence. The fleet once sent to hunt Holt was recalled to defend the inner worlds. The war wasn't over, but its shape had changed. The humans had done something no species had dared in 1,000 years. They broke the illusion of control. They proved that even the smallest force, driven by purpose and belief, could shake an empire. And so, the day Valkyrie struck Project Silence became known not as a battle, but as a turning point. The day the galaxy changed. The day people chose to fight. Commander Holt's ship limped into hiding once more, its systems broken, its crew wounded, but its mission complete. They had not been defeated. They had lit the fire. And now, the galaxy was burning with hope, with courage, and with the promise that Earth was no longer silent. The war had just begun, but the future belonged to those who were no longer afraid.